So, may we start? Goedemorgen or good morning. So I'm going to leave this slide for a couple of minutes, just to give you some context. It's hard for us to be in this position as being almost the last presentation, because we've seen so many ideas throughout these 2 days, so many initiatives, so many different ideas in all the countries, that being almost the last presentation, it's almost like we don't have nothing very new to present to you. But however, the Netherlands, and spoiler alert, is all about patient involvement. Since the first day we were there, it's all about patient involvement. Every person we meet, every time we meet someone from the healthcare industry, it's always patient involvement. Even before people knew that we were from the old program, people were already starting to talk about patient involvement. And that said, and here's the question, when we were trying to bring the ideas for this presentation, we were struggling a lot, not because we had few ideas, but because we had a lot of ideas. We had a lot of initiatives, widespread throughout the country, throughout the Netherlands. Do I change you? Or change you? So what we've brought to you, before getting into these ideas, we brought to you what we've seen in the Netherlands, and what we've seen was a virtuous cycle on patient development. And this cycle, for us, and all the ideas we were discussing, we can almost cluster them in 3 different clusters. And what are these clusters? So first of all, we've got ideas on the intervention level. So this is about a more individual level, about patient empowerment or patient's family empowerment. Then on a second level, this would not be possible if patients wouldn't give feedback on the intervention level. So we've got the feedback initiatives. And finally, we've got broader, more strategic influencing initiatives in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands has all this virtuous cycle which pushes forward patient involvement, and Cecile is here to bring you a story in the patient's perspective about a patient that underwent all this cycle.
And since this is all about patient involvement, I'm struggling a little bit with the microphone. I hope it's fine. Yeah. So, since it's all about patient involvement, we're going to tell this in a patient's voice. So what happened is that I went to my GP, and he was a little bit worried that there might be something seriously wrong. So he sent me to the hospital, where I had some tests done, and what they found out was that I had throat cancer, and I needed a really urgent surgery. For me, that was a bit of a shock. I've been well all my life and never had anything bad happen to me. So I have to say, the day I got the news, I really blanked. My mind just went blank, and I was only thinking about cancer and operation and dying, and I couldn't really handle any information about my operation or anything. So what they did was, after a couple of days, they set me up with a nurse who explained all about the operation. And for me, that was a really good thing, that I had a couple of days to actually just recover a little bit mentally and collect my mind and think about all the questions that I wanted to ask. And she explained everything. We had a really good talk, and she offered me the choice to see a former patient. It's apparently a program they've had for years, and I thought it sounded like a really good option to get some input from someone who had actually been through it, like what I was going to go through. So I happily accepted, and they set me up with this former patient who came to my house, and we had a really nice long chat, and he explained to me how he felt after the operation, what I could expect, what were some of the outcomes that I should be aware of. And it's a really good supplement to the more technical explanations that the healthcare staff can give you. So I had my operation, and I was recovering, and I met up with my nurse, and she was quite pleased with my recovery, and so she sent me home earlier than she would normally think would be possible. And we were both quite sure that that was because I had this interview with the former patient, because it gave me a different view of the whole process that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I actually also had the patient visit me after some time after my operation, because we'd become quite close. And now, being on the way to recovery, I'm ready to be more involved with giving feedback. And so one day, a lady from the hospital called me And she asked me if I wanted to maybe come and participate in this meeting in the hospital. They called it a mirror conversation. It's kind of a scheduled meeting, she said, for patients who'd been in the hospital to come and give their feedback, tell about their experiences for the hospital staff to learn from. I was a little bit in doubt as to whether I had anything to really contribute, but she seemed like they really wanted to hear my story, so I thought, okay, I'll go. And when I went there, I was a little bit nervous because there were a lot of people. I think we're about 8 to 10 patients or something, maybe 6 to 8, and then there were like 20 healthcare staff behind us in a half circle. And there were 2 nice ladies moderating the talk from in front of our table. And so it felt a little bit weird at first to have the healthcare staff behind you. You know, they're listening, and you don't really want to insult them. And I kind of felt like I'd been treated quite well when I was there. But as time went, I almost forgot they were there because we were having a really interesting conversation. And I could hear that some of the patients' experience was similar to mine, but others were quite different. And I felt actually that I had something to give back to the hospital, to actually give some feedback in this way. And after that, the 2 ladies, they summed up what we had heard so that we all agreed that this was what had been said. And then they had this little informal cafe meeting afterwards where we could also talk to the healthcare professionals. So it was all like a bit more just an open talk. And one of the healthcare staff said to me that he'd really been able to put himself in my shoes, in the patient's shoes, and he was really enthusiastic about that because it was a different way for them to get feedback other than just read it off a questionnaire, but actually listen. And what they do after this meeting, they'd actually make an action plan and they sent it to us patients so we could see what they were going to improve from this talk. And now that I think about it, I got the action plan, but I don't actually know what happened to it afterwards. I would have liked to be involved as a patient in the actual implementation of the changes that they were suggesting. But I suppose you can't have everything, and it was a really good experience anyway. And what actually happened in that meeting, the informal meeting afterwards, was that I met a relative of a patient who said that he'd been in something called a patient council. And it's apparently a thing that you apply for, it's voluntary, and apparently every healthcare provider in the Netherlands must have a patient council, and they've had that since 1996. It sounded like a really good way to be able to better the healthcare for more than just my own, like just myself, but for all patients. And what they do is they advise the healthcare provider on different topics, anything from quality improvement protocols or budget. So they're involved in quite a lot of things. He told me some of the things they've been in. They've been helping design a new entrance for a breast cancer unit for the patient's comfort, and they'd also helped design a plan for how to relocate care from one hospital to another, which I thought was quite a big thing for patients to be allowed to be involved in. They also helped design new nutrition plans and where to help the patients decide when or where they want to eat and what they want to eat. And also visiting hours have been changed with the help from Patient Council. They walk around the hospitals, he said, and talk to people and also engage with other organizations. So I thought that's quite an interesting way of being able to influence the healthcare system. And I thought, now that I'm on my way to recovery, I would really like to do this. So I think I'll apply, and if I get in, what I'd really like to work on is something like low literacy. Because for me, having that talk with the former patient in the beginning of my process, and also being in the mirror conversation, it was a different way of getting information. Now, I'm not good with long medical explanations, or for that matter, finding information on the internet and trying to understand stuff like that. And I think if you don't have the necessary skills here, you can't really participate. If you don't understand the information that you get, you can't influence, you can't be involved in your own process. So for me, that would be something really important to do. And I've heard about hospitals that actually do low literacy programs. They try to rewrite their brochures in a language that everyone can understand, and they train ambassadors to see the signs of people with low literacy so that they can talk to the patients about it, so they can get the information that they actually need. So the question from the beginning was, are we ready to involve the patients? Well, I think I, as a patient, can definitely say, I'm ready to be involved, but the question is, are you ready to involve me?
And wrapping all up, as we've seen, we brought you one example for each of these elements on the virtuous cycle. We could have brought you other examples, but the important focus here is in the Netherlands. We have seen these virtuous cycles composed of intervention on an individual level, giving feedback tools to the patient, and finally influencing strategies, also empowering the patient. And furthermore, the Netherlands is, and we brought you an example of low literacy programs, is trying to fight these barriers against or engaging in patient development. So regarding the question, is the Netherlands ready? Yes, we think we are.
So, dankjewel from the Dutch delegation, and thank you to our coordinators and all the hospitals that hosted us. We've had a really great experience.